It was supposed to be a routine expedition, another journey into the wild for the perfect shot. My name is Sarah Thompson, a seasoned wildlife photographer, but nothing could have prepared me for what awaited me in the dense, remote forests of Oregon. I set out under a sky painted with the softest blues and a gentle breeze that whispered through the pines. The forest was alive, teeming with unseen creatures and echoing with the songs of birds. I was in my element, camera in hand, capturing nature in its purest form. As the day progressed, the light shifted, casting long, dramatic shadows across the forest floor. The beauty was mesmerizing, but as the afternoon waned, so did the tranquility. The sky began to darken, morphing from peaceful blues to ominous grays. A storm was approaching, a fierce tempest that brewed with an intensity I had seldom seen. I wasn't worried at first. My plan had always included an emergency exit. A helicopter evacuation was scheduled for the evening, a standard precaution in my line of work. But as the wind picked up and the first raindrops fell, my radio crackled to life with bad news. The pilot's voice, usually so calm and reassuring, was laced with regret. The storm had made it too dangerous to fly. I was stranded, alone. Night was approaching quickly, the forest growing darker and more foreboding by the minute. I needed shelter. By sheer luck, or perhaps fate, I stumbled upon an abandoned cabin. Its time-worn walls and creaking doors seemed to groan with the weight of untold stories. It was far from comfortable, but it offered refuge from the relentless storm. I had barely settled in when I heard them. Voices, human voices, in a place where no human should be. My heart raced as I peered through a gap in the wooden planks. Shadows moved in the twilight, figures of men, rough and unkempt, vagabonds, drifters of the forest, their existence more myth than reality. Yet here they were, in flesh and blood. They approached the cabin, their conversation a series of grunts and muffled words. I could barely make out their features, rugged, with eyes that gleamed with a mix of curiosity and malice. They hadn't expected to find anyone here, least of all a lone woman. I crouched in the darkness, my camera my only companion. It felt absurd, holding on to it as though it could offer some protection. The men circled the cabin, their footsteps heavy and purposeful. I held my breath, praying they would move on, but luck wasn't on my side. The door creaked open, and in stepped the leader of the group. His face was weather-beaten, a scar running from his brow to his chin. He smelled of earth and rain, a pungent aroma that filled the cabin. His eyes locked onto mine, and in that moment, I felt like prey trapped in the gaze of a predator. His hands reached out, not to harm, but to grab, to claim. I recoiled, my back pressing against the cold wall. The cabin felt smaller, suffocating. I was cornered, with nowhere to run. My mind raced with possibilities, to fight, to plead, to escape, but I was frozen, paralyzed by fear. Then, as if by some divine intervention, the storm outside reached its peak. A bolt of lightning struck nearby, its thunderous roar momentarily distracting my would-be captors. It was now or never. Seizing the moment, I dashed past the men and into the storm. The forest at night is a different world, especially under the rage of a storm. Trees swayed violently, branches snapping like bones. The rain was relentless, stinging my skin as I ran blindly. Every sound was a threat, every shadow a potential enemy. I was lost, disoriented, but driven by the primal urge to survive. Time lost its meaning as I stumbled through the underbrush, tripping over roots and rocks. My camera, once my most prized possession, became a cumbersome weight, dragging me down. But I couldn't let it go. It was a part of me, a connection to the world beyond this nightmare. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to seep through the storm clouds, I collapsed. I found myself by a stream, its waters a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. The storm had passed, leaving the world eerily silent and still. I lay there, half in the water, half on the bank, my body and mind utterly spent. You might think the ordeal ended with the coming of the light, but the truth is, it stayed with me. The forest, once a place of beauty and wonder, now held a sense of foreboding. My photographs from before that night seemed like images from another life. The forest had revealed its darker side, and I could no longer see it the same way. Eventually, the rescue helicopter did arrive. The pilot's face, etched with concern, was a sight for sore eyes. As I was lifted away from that forest, I realized a part of me would always remain there. In that cabin, running through the storm, forever changed by a night of terror and the relentless pursuit of survival.